Hey guys, it's Marissa. So today I did like a creative makeup tutorial. I just wanted to do something that was kind of weed inspired, so I just did anything that was like green and just try to go out of my comfort zone. I'm trying to learn a little bit more with how to draw things on my face using concealer and stuff. So I was just trying to get a little bit creative with my look and just something a little bit inspired by what day it is. And if you're just interested to see how I did this look, then just keep on watching. So we're first going to be starting a base with our eyes, and we're going to be creating that using the LA Girl Pro Concealer in the shade Fairest. I'm just going to be applying this to my eyelids and then just blending everything out using my finger. As a transition shade, we're going to be dipping into the Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette in the shade Destiny. I'm just going to be applying this to my crease at first using an Ulta round brush, and I'm just going to be buffing everything out just as much as possible. So I thought this would be a little bit more of a green shade, but whenever I started applying it to my eye, I noticed it was more of a brownish shade, but I went along with it anyways just because I was going to be using other darker colors. The next shade I'm going to be using is the shade Untamed, which is like a really pretty dark green color, and I'm just adding that to my crease as well and just blending those two together. And then I'm just repeating those same exact steps to the other eye. Then I'm using a darker color green from the James Charles Artistry palette by Morphe, and it's in the shade Daddy. It's like this really pretty dark vibrant green, and it's just a little bit more brighter than the other one. So I'm just applying that on top of that and then just blending everything together again using the Morphe M321 brush. Then I'm going to be cutting the crease using that same concealer as before, which is the LA Girl Concealer in the shade Fairest. I'm just going to be applying this using an e.l.f. concealer brush. I'm just going to be lightly applying this just so that there's like a tacky little base to it, so whenever I apply the shimmer it sticks on really good. And then when I go to the eye that I'm focusing on right now, I'm going to be taking another layer of that same concealer again, just so I can really create a sharp edge to it. And then I'm going to be taking this really pretty shade from the palette, which is called Electric. It's like this greenish yellowish shade, but also has like a brown undertone to it in certain lightings. I'm applying this with my finger and also an e.l.f. precision brush and just trying to get into those inner corners of that cut crease as much as possible. And then just going back in with that other brush just to try to clean it up again. And I also did recut the crease just in case if it wasn't as smooth as I liked it. And then to really finish off the transition, I'm taking the shade Guac from the James Charles palette. And then to deepen the crease, I'm going to be using that same shade as before from the James Charles palette as well, which is in the shade Daddy. And then I'm just repeating those steps again to the other eye. For my eyeliner, I'm going to be using the e.l.f. liquid liner in the shade Jet Black, and I'm just going to be creating a wing with that. And then for mascara, I didn't want to wear falsies for this, but I wanted to create like a falsie-like effect. So I'm going to be taking two mascaras, and one of them is the Rimmel London Scandaleyes Wow Wings, and that is in the shade Extreme Black, and I'm just going to be applying that to my top lashes. And then for the second coat of mascara, I'm going to be using the Ulta Beauty Maximum Lashes, which is the defining and lengthening mascara, and that is in the shade Jet Black also. I know that this is a setting spray, but I like to use it as a primer just because it does have like this tacky feeling to it once you put it on your face, and it's the Pure Illuminating Mist Spray. And then afterwards I will be using also the e.l.f. Poreless Putty Primer just to hydrate my face a little bit more. For foundation, I'm going to be using the Clinique Beyond Perfecting Foundation and Concealer, and it's like the 2-in-1 kind of thing, and the shade that I'm using is 0.5 Breeze. I'm just putting this all over my face and just blending everything using the Real Techniques Beauty Complexion Sponge. To fill in my brows, I'm going to be using the shades Fudge and Mercury from the Anastasia Subculture palette, and I'm using that Mercury shade just to kind of deepen that brown color since it also gives off like a tannish color itself. For concealer, I'm going to be using the Tarte Shape Tape Concealer in the shade Fair Neutral. I'm just going to be applying this to my under eyes or any kind of darkness I have on my face. And this is like the last of the bottle that I'm using, so I apologize if it takes forever for me to apply it. I'm just trying to use as much as possible before I open my next one. And then to just set everything that I placed on my face, I'm going to be using the Airspun Loose Face Powder in the shade Naturally Neutral. The next step, I'm going to be using the Butter Bronzer in the shade 6676. I'm just going to be bronzing my face with that and also contouring my nose. And the brush that I'm using is just an Ulta blush brush. No, I'll leave it. No, I'll never forget that day. No, no, never forget that day. No, no, to warm up my face a bit, I'm going to be using the Tarte blush in the shade Peaceful. I'm just going to be applying this with the same Ulta blush brush and just applying it to my cheeks and also the tip of my nose. And then I'm just going to be cutting where I put that contour and just trying to bake it as much as possible using that same loose face powder. Then I'm going to be taking those two previous dark green shades that I put on my eyes, and I'm just going to be taking that with an e.l.f. concealer brush and applying it to my lower lash line. To brighten it up a little bit more too, I'm taking the shade Social Blade using an e.l.f. precision brush and just applying that over top and just smoking it out. And then I'm just going to be wiping away the face powder before I apply the Morphe setting spray. For my highlight, I'm going to be using the shade Cube from the Subculture palette, and I'm just going to be applying that using an e.l.f. blending brush, and then afterwards I'm going to be using that same beauty blender again just to blend everything into my skin. And then I'm just going to go back in with my lower lash line, and I'm just going to apply a few coats using the Rimmel London Scandaleyes Wow Wings in the shade Extreme Black. And I'm also just going to brush through lightly through my brows as well, just so I know that they will stay in place. Now for the fun part, we're going to be using that same LA Girl Pro Concealer and also that e.l.f. concealer brush. I'm just going to start drawing on the different shapes. To create like the weed symbol, I'm going to be using like diamond shapes for it and just kind of creating almost like a poinsettia, if that makes sense, but only half of it. And then I'm going to be filling everything in using that same dark green shade from the James Charles palette. Now I kind of struggled with this part since I normally don't usually do stuff like this, so I was taking that same e.l.f. liquid liner pen and I was just trying to outline the whole shape and also like the inner details of it as well. So if you're going to try to recreate this look, I would suggest for you to just really take your time and not rush this part, because you could really easily just like mess it up, and I almost did a few times, so I really just had to slow down and take my time. For the inner details, my brush wasn't really thin enough to create any, so I just kind of created some shading with it, but then afterwards I just covered it up with glitter. So really it just depends on your preference and what kind of pens that you're using. And then I also just went back in with that same concealer and everything, and it had like a green tint because of like the eyeshadow that I was using before. So it kind of like took for my advantage, and I kind of created it to be kind of like a homemade little face paint, if that makes sense. But I also just went back in using those same steps as before and just used that liquid eyeliner and just created a little mini weed symbol. And then afterwards I filled everything in using that shimmery green shade that I said, which is in the shade Electric. And then I'm just going to be finishing off the other half of my face off camera. Then for the last and final part, we're going to be using the Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson collaboration of their velour lipsticks. This is in the shade Shane, and I'm just going to be applying this to my lips. And this is like honestly one of my favorite lipstick collections, so I always use this a lot throughout my videos. So if you're interested in seeing more videos like this, then I recommend for you to subscribe and just to see what else I have offered in the next videos. But I really hope you enjoyed this one, and maybe this got you a little bit inspired to create something unique of your own, and I'll just see you guys next time. Bye!